Advent series that God deals with the overlooked quite a bit. The big things tend to happen through people that are overlooked. And Exodus isn't any different. Moses is not the first hero that we get in Exodus. He's the first main character probably, but the first heroes of Exodus aren't prophets or leaders or armies or anything like that. Um, it is through these servant women and these Hebrew slave women at the beginning of Exodus, and they're the whole reason the plan even fires off. Who run the world? There we go. Um, it's women. We've got the serpent targeting women in the garden. The woman is the target of the serpent. And then here at the beginning of Exodus, it's the women that are beginning to subvert the serpent. I think that's a huge deal. You might not, but I'm in charge. So, so that's what gets put on the screen. We're going to go to Exodus chapter 1, verse 15 through 22. Then the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah and the other was Puah, when you serve as midwife to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall kill him. But if it is a daughter, she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but let the male children live. So the king of Egypt called the midwives and said to them, why have you done this? And let the male children live. I love this part. The midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwives come to them. I don't know. That's crazy. They just have the babies before we get there and we can't find them. They're very obviously lying to their king about what they're doing. It's not that this is actually happening. There's like an underground railroad happening for these Hebrew baby boys that's being set up by these midwives who fear God and are not going to listen to the serpent. So God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew very strong. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families. And then Pharaoh commanded all his people, every son that is born to the Hebrews you shall cast into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live. So we've got Shiphrah and Puah. They're the first to really start pushing back against the evil that's happening to God's people here. And God blesses them. It doesn't say whether or not they're Hebrews. It does say that they continued to multiply. But we just know that these midwives serving Egypt fear God, and they're not going to go along with the serpent. But then Pharaoh decides to raise the temperature a little bit. It starts as a secret command to a very small group of people. It's just these midwives. Egypt as a nation doesn't know that there's a conspiracy to kill all the Hebrew baby boys right now because he's just telling anyone who might happen to cross paths with a Hebrew baby boy. But then that doesn't work out because people resist and people aren't willing to participate in evil. And so now Pharaoh says it's a command to all his people. And when I was thinking about this last night, I was imagining a Hebrew woman living in Egypt who is 8.5, 9 months pregnant, probably already enslaved. And it's not hard to picture this group of Egyptian men following behind her, waiting to see if they had to throw her baby into the Nile or not. People being harassed. You've got the whole nation participating in the evil now. So, I still found a way to bum everybody out. This rules. We're going to go to our next set of women here. We're going to start in chapter 2, verse 1. Now a man from the house of Levi went and took as his wife a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she took for him a basket made of bulrushes and daubed it with bitumen and pitch, and and she put the child in it and placed it among the reeds by the river bank. And his sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. Now the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and while her young women walked beside the river, she saw the basket among the reeds and sent her servant woman, and she took it. When she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby was crying. She took pity on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call you a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the girl went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. When the child grew older, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses because, she said, "I drew him out of the water." So you've got Moses' mother, who is named Yocheved. You got his sister, who is named Miriam. And you've got Pharaoh's daughter, who isn't directly named in Scripture, but historians have tried to figure out who that possible Pharaoh and his daughter might have been. But we got a little bit of malicious compliance from Yocheved going on. She technically does put her baby boy in the Nile River, but she puts him in a basket first. And a fun fact is that the Hebrew word being used here is teva. That is the same word that's used for Noah's Ark. And so again, we have a pattern here. We've got the waters of chaos and death, and then you have a promise that's being preserved in a teva. It's a song. It just keeps going. And then you've got you've got Moses' sister Miriam, who watches her mom put this baby basket in the river and stays close. I imagine if we had a baby and one of my kids had to watch us put a baby in a basket down the river, one of them might try to stay close to see what happens. And so you've got Miriam staying close by so that she can see how this thing plays out. And then you've got Pharaoh's daughter, who's the daughter of the man who's her dad is the reason this is happening. And she sees him and she has pity on him and she takes him out of the water. And the cool thing all culminates is that because Miriam was there and because Pharaoh's daughter had pity, you've got Moses' own mother getting paid to come and raise her son, who is going to overthrow Pharaoh, who is going to defeat Pharaoh. You've got Pharaoh's wallet funding the Exodus right now. The call is coming from inside the house. We see a lot in Genesis that people are just willing to go along with the serpent. It takes an incredible amount of things lining up for things to start going well. And right here at the beginning of Exodus, we're presented with a group of women that just say no. We're not going to participate in the evil that's happening right now. So that brings us to Moses. And Moses might be the biggest main character that we get so far. We get Abraham and his descendants that kind of get set up. But we've got like 4 books that we're about to hit, and we're not going to tackle them all. I realize we're 13 weeks into this series, and we're just starting Exodus. We will take breaks every now and then. This time last year, we were wrapping up a 6-month series about the core values. So I haven't even hit the record for longest streak on one series yet. We're only about halfway to that, but we'll take some breaks and pick up. But Moses is our big main character now. And he's in this really strange position where he was part of a national order. He was part of a commanded genocide. He was a member of a group that was being targeted by earthly power. And because of this weird set of circumstances with these weird women who refused to comply with the king, he is now being raised in the king's house. Literally, watch The Prince of Egypt. There are some things that it gets wrong. It sets up this big mystery that Moses discovers that he's Hebrew. It was state secrets. The world can't know that Moses is actually a Hebrew. Moses knows that he's Hebrew the whole time. He was raised by his own mother. He's aware that he's a Hebrew. But it's a very strange position because we don't deal with kings a lot so far. And now you have this Hebrew baby boy. Joseph got close. Joseph was the second most powerful person in Egypt. And a few generations later, now you've got Moses, who is being raised as a prince. This is God doing something very strange here. It's the first time that God is proximity to power is going to be part of the plan, but not the way that a lot of especially modern Christians think proximity to power is part of the plan. We've got a child that's being raised with full knowledge of who he is, and how does he interact with being in that seat of power? We'll go through this last part quickly. Movement 3, Between Two Worlds. I think this is where I rolled my eyes the hardest. That sounds like a CW show. But so we don't exactly have the story playing out like the Prince of Egypt. He knows that he's Hebrew. He knows who his people are. He sees their suffering. But he's Egyptian through his upbringing. He's been in these halls of power. He is part of the system that has oppressed his people. And so Moses is the latest in a list of really complicated figures that we get. We get Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. Everybody's got their quirks. Everybody's got some kind of dysfunction. But specifically here, we have somebody being raised up who understands that his people are being oppressed, and he understands Pharaoh. And he understands and he knows power. He's not just a governor like Joseph. He is the Prince of Egypt. Great movie. All-star cast. It's wonderful. I don't think it's on anything, so you may have to rent it. YouTube. Thanks, Char. There you go. But like we've seen so far, there is a point where our main characters, except for Joseph, from what I can recall, Moses does kind of take the plan into his own hands. And he does it the same way that Egypt does it. His tools are Egypt's tools because he's an Egyptian by his upbringing. And so Moses tries to take justice for his people into his own hands. In chapter 2, verse 11, one day when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and looked on their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people. He looked this way and that, and seeing no one, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Murder's still bad. When he went out the next day, behold, two Hebrews were struggling together, and he said to the man in the wrong, "Why do you strike your companion?" And he answered, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid and thought, "Surely the thing is known." When Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and stayed in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Oh, sorry, buddy. Moses sees injustice, actual injustice happening, and he wants rescue. But like I said, his tools for liberation are Egypt's tools. And they're not just Egypt's tools, they're the serpent's tools that we've already seen put to use for evil. And his first attempt at deliverance goes wrong because he tried to take control. So we go from raising a prince to now we have an exiled fugitive. The bell curve for God's people has dropped drastically. We had Joseph and Moses having everything go up to the right for a while, and then you murder a slave driver, and all of a sudden everyone's upset at you now. So we've gone from the wilderness, Abraham, to a little bit more wilderness, and then we got Joseph, and he's thrown into slavery. But then we see him be raised up to leadership, and then we see the thing dip again, and now the Hebrews are slaves. But then we've got Moses, and so we're getting back into the palace, and then we drop off again, and now we're back in the wilderness. Our main character is not even a slave; he's just a fugitive. He's an exile. And so 40 years pass here. Moses' life happens in these cool little 40-year fragments. You got 40 years in Egypt, 40 years in Midian, 40 years in the wilderness. He's a shepherd. He's living in Midian. He thinks that his story is probably over. He can't go back to Egypt. Egypt is won, and the people of Israel are going to continue to be enslaved and snuffed out. But then we come to the end of chapter 2, verse 23 and 25. During those many days, the king of Egypt died, and the people of Israel groaned because of their slavery and cried out for help. Their cry for rescue from slavery came up to God, and God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the people of Israel, and God knew. So we've got God heard, God remembered, God saw, and God knew. At the end of chapter 3 of Genesis, where we get the two diverging paths, where we've got Cain's line and Seth's line. The end of Cain's line celebrates violence and murder and domination. And we come to the end of Seth's line, and it says, at this time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord. So we've got clear evidence that God is still watching, and God is still listening, and God still knows. When it says God remembered his covenant with Abraham, it's not like God is sitting in his office in heaven and by some chance one of the Hebrew prayers just happened to get through to him, and he's just like, they're suffering, they're enslaved, but Abraham, I better go and do something. God has been aware the whole time. And so before Moses ever sees the burning bush, God hears, God remembers, God sees, and God knows. God is working in the background the whole time. And things are being set up to go a certain way, not because God needs them to go a certain way, but because God can still make things happen even when all of the natural circumstances say they shouldn't go that way. It's not that just God really likes working with a really weird and long-term complicated plan. It's that human nature and human existence have always ran contrary to what God is trying to do. And he is a very skilled gymnast in the way that he can twist to fit and still keep his plan going. That remains consistent all the way to Jesus. You want to talk about complicated solution to a complicated plan. Because we think about Silent Saturday, which might be the biggest "Where's God" moment in our Bible. Silent Saturday, we have a name for everything. That is the Saturday between Good Friday and Resurrection Sunday. Jesus is in the tomb. Rome has conquered the uprising. You've got the disciples probably thinking that like the story is over, revolution done. But God is working in the background the whole time. I said it earlier, Exodus is the story that explains every other story from here on out. God hears the oppressed. God does confront the powers that run the world. God raises deliverers. And God brings freedom out of slavery. And he brings life out of death. And ultimately, through Jesus, God doesn't just raise up a deliverer, God becomes the deliverer himself. Everything is leading us to Jesus, albeit really slowly, but we're getting there. Why don't y'all stand with me? Thank you for being here today. We'll be in Exodus and dealing with Moses for a minute. We're going to get into some of this, but I appreciate you guys being here and locking in and being willing to hear the details in ways that you probably haven't in a long time. So appreciate y'all. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for the opportunity to get together with my brothers and sisters and follow Jesus together and worship Jesus together and learn about Jesus together. Go with us and continue to make us more like Jesus so that we can be the hands and feet of Jesus to a world that desperately needs Jesus. Jesus is the ultimate freedom from slavery. Reveal yourself to us, keep us safe, and bring us back next time. In Jesus' name, amen. See y'all later.